Choosing the right product to sell can make or break your business. Today, I'm going to be breaking down exactly how I chose to enter the hair loss prevention and pharmaceutical market and why I chose Hair Rescue as my main e-commerce business. This also isn't just really a theory that I came up with. I'll share some real numbers from the industry that I analyzed and why the hair growth supplements checked all the boxes for me personally. What specific criteria I use to evaluate this decision, and whether you're looking to start a business, drop shipping, physical product, physical service, etc. I'm going to give you the framework for how you can evaluate if it is something that you actually want to enter. Now, of course, every business, according to Alex Hormozi out there, can be scaled to $100 million a year, but for some, it's going to be much easier than others, and some have a much higher return customer rate than others. And that is one of the main key reasons why I chose e-com and physical product supplements to get into. But before I even get into these specific industries and how I went about exactly choosing each one, I developed a 5-pillar framework for evaluating the product opportunities. The first one is your market size and growth potential. The next one is going to be your competition analysis. And then you have your personal knowledge and passions, profit margin and economics, as well as regulatory and operational complexity. But two of the biggest ones I would mention are definitely going to be your market size and growth potential, along with your personal knowledge and passions. A lot of people start getting into the drop shipping game and they're focusing on figuring out the right product to sell. But in reality, a better opportunity is probably going to be figuring out how to build a brand properly, because products can always be iterated. Of course, someone can go out there and make the exact product the exact way you sell it if it's not trademarked, or at least, you have some intellectual property around it, but then they can start running ads, mix and match just a little bit, and then bam, you're almost out of a market because of ad fatigue, because of somebody selling the exact same thing. What you can't copy that easily is community and actual brand around a product. So you're going to be selling you're going to be selling your product, and you're going to be selling your brand, which is one of the most important things about e-commerce and about business today. It is not about finding a viral product in a viral niche to make a quick buck in. You're trying to stay in this for the long run, stay in business for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, or at least make enough money in the short term to where you never have to work again, whether that's 5, 10, 15, $20 million. If you're new here, my name is Spencer Gilmore. I am the creator and founder of Hair Rescue. We are a company that is designed to sell hair supplements to people suffering from male pattern baldness. A little bit of a backstory as well on myself and my company. We've been in business now since about 2021, 2022, and I've sold over 10,000 plus men worldwide affected with male pattern baldness. The main selling point of my product is a topical anti-androgen called RU5-8841, and we combine that with minoxidil. The reason why we did this is because they were both products that I was using. I was suffering from hair loss when I was 20 years old. I had male pattern baldness running through my family, and it was pretty aggressive. One of the main treatments available today, and which I have covered extensively in a lot of other videos, is going to be 5-alpha reductase inhibitors, things like finasteride and dutasteride. However, there is a chance of side effects with these drugs. Like all FDA-approved drugs and non-FDA approved drugs, you can have side effects. I unfortunately had side effects. They weren't super severe, but they were severe enough that I didn't want to keep taking the drug. And I figured that I probably wasn't the only one around there. And so these men, like myself, need something else on the market. And just to prove that this is such a extensively large problem in the world today, I did a little bit of research on how big of a industry is the hair loss industry, the pharmaceutical industry, and just finasteride in general. And this is going to look at your market size and growth, one of the first pillars of why you should choose any industry or specific product. Look at key things like, is the market big enough to support profitable business? It's growing or shrinking? How is the future looking for it? Of course, if you're not trying to become the next Tesla, this might not be the most important thing because you might be making your own industry. I wasn't really getting into this to make this a billion-dollar company. I was hoping to make a few $1 million a year. But I was also just getting into this to help people like myself, because I figured if I had a problem with it, other people might have had a problem with it. So I did a little bit of digging because these numbers were actually really interesting to me. I just wanted to know, and I asked ChatGPT, how many men take finasteride and dutasteride in the world today? You can talk about the United States and around the world. It gave me a lot of numbers, and since some of it is medication, it's a little difficult to get this answer, and it ranged between 15 to 29 million worldwide currently taking the drug, which is around, it gave me an average of about 22 million men in the world and about 5 million men in the United States taking either finasteride, dutasteride, or using some compound pharmacies blend of these drugs, whether it's oral or topical. And if you break that down by actual FDA statistics of who got side effects and stopped using the drug because either it gave them nasty sexual side effects or it just wasn't giving the results they were looking for, you're looking at anywhere from 3 to 10% on the high end. Well, if you're talking about 20 million people, that's 2 million people in the world that need an alternative to 5-alpha reductase inhibitors, which are the most popular treatments on the market for blocking DHT, and they didn't have an answer. So what do we do? So I looked at the available options in the market and I saw that, yes, this is a huge saturated market when it comes to addressing the cause of hair loss because there are doctors selling it, there are compound pharmacies selling it, there are tons of natural hair growth supplements on the market. However, this specific niche and this specific area of 2 million-ish men around the world is not being addressed because it was a problem that I suffered from. What did I do? Well, I decided to look at who was selling this stuff, and that's doing your competition analysis. How saturated is the market for people selling it? I found out that nobody was really selling RU58841. One, because it isn't an FDA-approved treatment, but when it comes to anecdotal evidence and when it comes to a decent amount of research going through PubMed articles, Reddit forums, etc., you can actually find that it's a relatively effective drug that's not that risky. At least not a ton more risky than the FDA-approved treatments. Now, it was never approved for use in humans yet, but there are other topical anti-androgens that are being potentially going to pass phase 2, 3 clinical trials and get FDA approval. I've made other videos on those, so I'm not going to get into it right now. But it was enough, and it worked for me in a safe enough way that I figured I could at least market it to people and tell them about the potential risks, but also tell them about the potential rewards. And the feedback was pretty positive. There wasn't really a competition that was selling it and marketing it online. They had it on websites that were like peptide websites with no social media accounts, no face behind the brand, and some not even showing actual third-party lab tests. So I found that really interesting because I was like, well, if I want to be transparent, I wanted to let people know that they're buying from me, and I wanted to actually build a brand around this. I could just create social media pages and probably get a few customers from that. I didn't know that the feedback was going to be this astounding and that finasteride was going to cause this big of an issue for so many men out there. And that's where your personal knowledge and passion actually comes into the product and brand that you are going to be choosing. You shouldn't just build a product on or build a brand 100% because it looks like it could be a potential market fit if you don't know anything about it. Of course, you can obviously learn, you can educate yourself, but I guarantee you, if you're not even remotely passionate about it or you have no enjoyment at all talking about this stuff, you're going to crash and burn. You might be able to do it, tough it out for a little bit, but if you have no passion about it, you will likely crash and burn because you need to have a little bit of passion, at least to convey to your customers that you know what you're talking about and that you're interested in it as they are, because customers can tell. And that was kind of where the gap that I was going to exploit. We're targeting men with male pattern baldness who suffered from finasteride and dutasteride side effects. And that is kind of how I decided that like this is something that I should actually go into because I was also using this. And it's like, if it's something that works for you, there's probably 10,000, 100,000 other people in the world that have the same problem or looking for a solution just like you. And if you can figure that out, then you can probably build a brand or a business around it. And if you can sell to that many people, you will never need for money again. One of the beautiful things about this industry is that it runs on a subscription revenue and it is growing like crazy. The global dietary supplement market is growing and it is around 150 billion today. And it is growing up to about 272 billion by 2028, 2029. Growing at about 8.6% year over year. Really crazy. Some of the key factors that I was looking at was the aging population focused on wellness, preventative healthcare trends, increased health conscious post-COVID, and direct-to-consumer e-commerce growth. This was just something that really kind of interested me. And it is something that you should always look into when you're going to be analyzing a product or service to get into. When I was analyzing the market of like what I should actually go into and dive into, because this wasn't the first business that I had ever started, I knew that supplements or at least reoccurring revenue was something that I really wanted to get into. You know, people come back and buy clothes, but supplements are something that they actually come back and buy multiple times if they like it. And of course, I knew this product wasn't going to be for everyone, but I knew that if I could get that 10,000 plus customers to come back and buy from me time and time again because it was working for them and they didn't have any issues with the product, then I would have a suitable business that was probably making 7 figures to 8 figures year over year. It's just going to be getting it into their hands. On top of this, the pharmaceutical industry and supplement industry are expanding like crazy. Like the pharmaceutical industry is $1.4 trillion business. And on top of this, the men's hair loss industry is a $4.2 billion global industry right now that is expected to go to $13.2 billion by 2030. That's a 13.8% year over year growth, which is absolutely crazy, especially when you consider 50 plus million men in the US experience male pattern baldness. So after I did a little bit of digging with this online, I knew that supplements and male hair loss was actually a really, really good market to get into, not to mention all the facts about how big of an industry is finasteride and dutasteride and how many men are actually on this drug in the world. Really crazy to think about. So why I chose this industry was because you have one, recurring revenue. You have a product that if your customers use and like, they will keep coming back and buying. You have a industry that is growing at anywhere from 8 to almost 14% year over year. And you already have a customer basis of around 22 million men in the world who are either not getting the results they were looking for or got nasty sexual side effects. So that is a total addressable market. And on top of that, the competition that I was looking at didn't really advertise. There was not really a lot of advertising for RU58841. And on top of this, to make it a little bit more of a specialized compound, I combined it with minoxidil, which is another thing that I was actually using. On top of this, you can even analyze like social trends of how men are caring more about how they look with the rise of social media, having your face online a lot more, and just trying to have overall better experience when it comes to their health and wellness. So hair is a total game changer with this industry. And being bald or having a bad hairline does not help your chances with women and just doesn't help your chances online at all. Having a good hairline can. Of course, you can go get a hair transplant, or you can grow a toupee, or you can be bald and just wear hats. But hair transplants are not as magical as they're always made out to be. My dad personally has had 3 hair transplants in his life, and he still doesn't have the perfect hairline at the age of 60. A little bit older, but obviously, if he's had 3 hair transplants, you'd think at that age, he would probably have a full head of hair, which he does, but it's pretty thin and not the thickest full head of hair. Hair transplants often have to go back for a second or third treatment, so they're not just a one-stop shop for fixing your hair loss. On top of this, most hair transplant clinics recommend you take 5-alpha reductase inhibitors like finasteride and dutasteride before to maximize the amount of hair you have, and after to make sure the hair transplant sticks and takes to the scalp as best as possible. This is where some of that passion and knowing about the industry helps yourself. I would love to be a drop shipper and not touch the product and not have my hands in this, but if you're not passionate about anything and you're not passionate about a little bit of an industry or skill that you have or accumulated, then it just doesn't help your case quite as much. And that's one of the reasons why I knew I could get into this, because I was talking about it with friends and family even before I had the business, and they were like, you know a lot about this. And most of it just came from YouTube videos, forums, PubMed articles, and just reading into it because it was a problem that I was personally suffering with. And I guarantee you there's a problem that you're suffering with, whether it's making gluten-free pancakes or whether it's trying to find the right shoelace for your shoes because you're a runner. I don't know. Whatever it is out there, you probably have a certain passion that you can sell to somebody. And maybe it isn't a $14 billion industry like men's hair loss, but it can still be an industry that is going to make you a millionaire or make you $250,000 a year and your own boss. Sounds a lot better than working for somebody else, and I'm pretty sure most people can do it. Some other key facts that I think everyone should also look into when they're talking about any business is just looking at the overall cost per goods and their gross profit margin. A lot of people don't think about this stuff. And I know I've made videos in the past about you don't need a business plan, but these are just little things to get into before you're way over your head. One person who I see this a lot from is a Squid Pactor. He talks about not knowing anything about the clothing industry, and if he had to do it again, he might not start another clothing business because the profit margins actually suck on clothes. You have like a 10 to 15% profit margin on a good clothing company, and when you're growing, you might not even get that much. Whereas supplements have somewhere to 60 to 80% plus. It is a much better profit margin when you look at the actual lifetime value of a good customer because they're coming back time and time again. And that's something that you will learn when you get more into business, is analyzing the back end metrics and how to become more profitable. But that is something that is like once somebody's using your supplement and they've built up some brand loyalty, which we're trying to build brands here, not trying to build a single product, they're likely to keep coming back to you over someone else. And this is also something that I realized when I got into it, is people want to buy from you. They really want to buy from you because I don't sell minoxidil, but I've had so many requests for people to buy just minoxidil from me. We sell it with our mixture and our blend, but they don't want to buy it from Rogaine or from Costco. They're like, I want to buy it from you. Thought it was interesting, but I was like, I can't compete with Kirkland, Costco, and Target. Their prices are just so cheap. I'm like, I can't make a product that cheap unless I sell millions of bottles of this stuff. And lastly, one thing you really want to look into is going to be your regulatory and operational complexity. I know that you would think that selling a hair supplement, you'd have to have a lot of regulatory and operational complexity when entering the industry. But as long as you're not making FDA approved claims, it's not as difficult to sell supplements in the United States and in the world as you might think. You can't make outlandish claims like this is the way, or, these are facts, or we're certain, but you can make, outlandish claims that it's going to work for you think it's going to work for people, because you want to look at like, what are the barriers to entry to this? If you have an industry or a product or a service, like you're trying to make forklifts, and like you're really passionate about forklifts and forklift operating machinery, well, it's pretty expensive to build a forklift because just think about the manpower, the parts, the labor to build it all. That is a pretty difficult thing. Now, if you know more than everybody about that, maybe you can get someone to help you fund it, but it's much easier to just sell like a protein powder because you can buy and sell small amounts of that to get started. You don't need tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even millions of dollars to get started. You can start small. And that is one of the biggest things too that I would say is don't get yourself over leveraged. ChatGPT and these AI tools now are going to be your best friend when it comes to order size, quantity, addressing the market, looking at actually how difficult the industry is and how much you should actually start with when you're selling. All of these things are important things to address when you are actually looking at what product and what service and what field to actually go into. Those are kind of like the 5 pillars that I would say are really important to look into. That is not necessarily how I would start a business. This is just how I would address picking a product, picking a service, picking an industry, and why you should choose each one. That is why I chose to sell hair supplements to men. The market had a addressable need. I had a niche. I had a subset of already built-in customers who were there looking for this product and they didn't even know it yet because they were experiencing side effects from the FDA-approved treatment that was available. And I was just here to fill that gap. And it's been very profitable. And I'm so thankful that I'm here to help so many men and women in some cases, but it's a very cool thing to see. And I know that it can be very confusing, but building a brand is also going to take time. It is something that's not going to be a quick flip. You're going to be where you want to be in a month. It is likely going to take multiple years to get there, and you're going to have to do it slowly. But once you're, on this journey, you can figure it out. And that is how you can choose the right product and the right business to get into for yourself, or maybe even joining another business that maybe your friend is trying to start. You can ask him these questions and really pick his brain to see if he knows the right things about the product, about the industry, and what he's getting himself into. If you like this video, please leave a comment, subscribe to my channel. I usually post hair stuff, but I'm also posting business content here. I'm going to make more business related content because I like talking about it, but I'm also going to continue making hair product things. So leave questions that you have. I'll try to make videos about them, either in short form or long form content like this. Hopefully this didn't go over people's head like it went over my head and I explained it well enough. Peace.